just because they're in college doesn't mean this time around that they're necessarily voting the way that you think college students vote.
We also welcome Kayleigh McEnany, Trey Gowdy. Kayleigh, the interesting thing I mentioned earlier was Florida. We've already called that state for the former president, but inside those numbers, there's a massive Puerto Rican turnout in Osceola County and other places.
Yes.
In other places, the media would tell you that MSG rally really upset the Puerto Rican vote outpouring, but Trump won that overwhelmingly with a massive Puerto Rican turnout. I'm not sure it affects things one-to-one, but it is interesting to look at.
It is. So Osceola County, as you point out, a big Puerto Rican population. Listen to this. Joe Biden won Osceola County by 14%. With 95% reporting currently, Donald Trump is leading by 1. Now, what other national lessons can we take from Florida? Miami-Dade County, a huge Latino population. No presidential candidate has won that since 1988. Ron DeSantis, of course, won Miami-Dade as a governor. But currently, Donald Trump in Miami-Dade County with 95% reporting is plus 11.
Thank you. The electoral vote count about to go up. Stay tuned.
We are seconds away from 15 states, including New York, Colorado, Texas, plus critical battlegrounds.
We are going to win the state of Michigan.
Arizona, we need to fight this battle on every front.
With 163 electoral votes on the line, we have the results as they come in. The moment is here. America is watching.
It is 9 o'clock in New York. Another 15 states have just finished voting. This is the heat of the matter here. The Fox News decision desk says it's too early to call Michigan one of the two battlegrounds in the Rust Belt that just finished voting, part of that blue wall that we hear about all the time.
The other is Wisconsin, where Vice President Harris and former President Trump appear to be locked in a very tight race. And again, this is too early, not too close, but too early to call many of these races. Arizona also too early to call as the polls are closing there.
Fox News can project that former President Trump will win Texas. That locks 40 more electoral votes into his column. Former president also has a lead in Iowa. There's no call at the top of the hour here. Remember that Iowa poll had people scrambling there at the Des Moines Register saying it was Harris lead by 3.
Yeah, the same day Emerson had him up by 10, but that got a lot of people's attention because Ann Seltzer is such a well-known and usually correct pollster. So we'll see how Iowa plays out tonight. In Nebraska, the Fox News decision desk can project that Trump will win the statewide vote. Nebraska gives 2 electoral votes to the winner of the state and 1 vote to the presidential winner in each of their districts. So Trump will also win Nebraska's 1st and 3rd districts. The more suburban 2nd district, Omaha, which is the blue dot that we have talked so much about, that is too early to call, but Harris has a lead there.
The Fox News decision desk can project that Vice President Harris will win New York, giving the Vice President 28 more electoral votes. She also has a lead in Minnesota. Too early to call the state of Minnesota, which closed in recent days, according to the poll.
Obviously, the vice presidential candidate, Tim Walz, from Minnesota, and now Fox News can project a Harris victory in Colorado as well. She gets 10 more electoral college votes there. New Mexico, too early to call, but Harris has a lead, according to our Fox News voter analysis in New Mexico.
Former President Trump will win Louisiana, which has voted for a Republican in every election this century. Pretty sure we were going to get that one. Trump also wins Kansas, adding another 6 electoral votes to his tally.
The former president will win North Dakota, a longtime conservative state as well. He will also take South Dakota, which often mirrors the vote of its neighbor to the north.
And Fox News can project that the former president will win Wyoming, or 3 electoral votes. So there you see the tally on your screen, 178 electoral votes to 113. That map of the U.S. is slowly filling in, and we will continue to bring that to you throughout the night as we make more calls.
So moving to the Senate and back to the Rust Belt as well. The Fox News decision desk say it is too early to call this race, which we've been watching between incumbent Democratic Senator Tammy Baldwin, who is in close race now with Republican banker and entrepreneur Eric Hovde.
Michigan Senate race also too early to call. Former GOP Congressman Mike Rogers competing against current Democratic House Representative Alyssa Slotkin. In Arizona, Democratic House Representative Ruben Gallego has a lead on Republican candidate Carrie Lake, also too early to call out there.
Go to Nebraska, and there are two Senate races on the ballot today, and the race between incumbent Deb Fischer and independent Dan Osborne is close to call, and too early to call, I should say, according to our decision desk. Fox News can project that Republican Pete Ricketts will continue to serve as a Nebraska senator.
In Texas, two-term Senator Ted Cruz is locked in a close race against current Democratic Congressman Colin Allred. Too early to call that race, according to the decision desk, but they can project that Minnesota's Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar will sail to a fourth term.
New York Democratic Senator Kirsten Gillibrand will win another term in the Empire State, and Democrats will hold their seat in New Mexico, where Senator Martin Heinrich defeats Republican Nella Domenici.
Daughter of the late Senator Domenici. North Dakota's GOP Senator Kevin Cramer will easily win a second term, and in Wyoming, Senator John Barrasso will also win re-election as he serves as the chair of the Senate Republican Conference.
Let's take a look at how the Senate is stacking up at this hour 9:04 on the East Coast, and we have 46 Republicans. The one flip, which we have mentioned, is West Virginia, waiting for other states that are on the bubble and close and early at this point in the night. 37 Democrats are hanging on to their seats in the United States Senate.
I think this is like where everything starts to gel. And we start to get more of the hard numbers. Let's go to Bill at the billboard. Harold, I'm sorry, Texas went to the Republicans.
No, I just think the numbers. I'm only looking at some of the popular vote numbers and how the candidates performing with minority vote.
I know
in suburban areas. Yeah.
I'm just joking.
Okay, so a couple things here. Go blue. We talk Michigan. We'll be in Ohio in a moment here. Hang on one second there, bud. Okay, just want to show you this. I mean, this has got to be your target right now. You know, Fulton County, heavily populated, and a ton of votes there, okay? It hasn't really moved, so the estimated number of votes still out is about 30%, and Kamala Harris hanging in number 7. She's going to win the county, okay? Question is the margin. The question is whether or not, Trump is chewing in this African-American male vote that we were talking about, because I want to come up to North Carolina. I'll show you a county. Okay, this is rural, and it's also African-American. 47% African-Americans. It's a small county here. It's called Anson, all right? Trump's winning, okay? What's that mean? Okay, this is Biden 4 years ago by 4 points, okay? Trump right now, flipping that county, is there a minority vote out there that is helping to buoy his campaign? It's something we got to consider. Another thing I want to point out just while I got you here, okay, guys? This is the part of the state that was racked by that hurricane, all right? This is Trump territory, all right? 61%, 68%, 81%. But come in here for a little bit. This is Montgomery, all right? This is Asheville. You expect this to go blue, indeed it has right now, about 2/3 of the vote. No, sorry, 60% of the vote in. She's got 2/3 of the vote right now. But these counties here, you just wonder if there's an effect here, all right? Because 53, this is Transylvania. I was checking this out a short time ago. This is Rutherford, 72, but a lot of that vote's still out there. Why am I showing you this? Because your comparison for percentage is that you expect Trump to do well out here. 72, Henderson, 58, Haywood, 62. So we're going to see through the night whether or not that storm damage had an effect on the vote turnout in North Carolina. Just keep that in mind as we move through the night. Also, I was just poking through here in Ohio. We saw this a moment ago based on the percentage spread. It seems like Trump is upping his number. Remember, I made the point that he won the state by 8 points in 2016, 8 points in 2020. And he was trailing there the last time we checked out the Buckeye State. But right now, the number has improved tremendously for Trump. So he's starting to track a little more toward that 8 points. And we were making the observation earlier about the Iowa poll from over the weekend. And do folks in Ohio vote like the folks in Iowa? If Ann Seltzer's poll, the Des Moines Register, had Kamala Harris win in Iowa by 3 points, a lot of people dismissed that. And if you're going to draw that comparison with Ohio, I think right now you can say that maybe Iowa's not going to go that way, but we'll see throughout the course of the night there. So
I think we should get a cut from the Des Moines Register. We've mentioned her like 5 times this evening. I don't think there's maybe something for the mention.
Yeah, just because I popped it up, guys. We're looking at the first time here. Yeah, you're right about that, right? A little something on the side, a little backsheesh, right, Fred? Okay, so this is Michigan. The first time I've looked at it, right? You got 10% in, all right? Look at this. Robert Kennedy going to make a difference in Michigan. He is on the ballot. They tried to get him off the ballot. The court said, no, you got to be on the ballot. He's drawing 2,455 raw votes. Okay, now, if Michigan is that close, it's just something that we're going to have to watch throughout the night to see whether or not this is some sort of spoiler for the red team and whether it helps out Team Blue in Michigan so far. So that's for you, by the way.
Let's interact with the panel here. Yes. Trey Gowdy's here. You know, what about that point about third party? RFK Jr. tries, first of all, the Democrats try to prevent him from getting on the ballot. And then the Democrats try to prevent him from getting off the ballot. Now, he's on the ballot in Michigan and Wisconsin, also Minnesota. But Michigan and Wisconsin, obviously, if it comes down to really tight, that could make a difference.
Why would anyone vote for someone who doesn't want to be the president and has asked you not to? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Who are these 0.4% that are voting for someone who has begged you not to vote for him? If you want to see him in Washington, don't vote for him. But it reminds me of Jill Stein. I mean, I think Jill Stein cost Hillary Clinton a state. I know that Ross Perot cost Bush a presidential election. I was in the green room, Brett, doing what I did in high school, which is finding the two smartest kids in the class and sitting in between them and looking on their papers. That's McCarthy and Rove. There may be a 269 tie. I know nobody wants to hear that, but there is a scenario under which there will be a
topic
tie.
for discussion tonight.
Sean, you want to move on?
Yeah, I think we can move on from that. I don't think anyone really wants that. But actually, I would accept that because that would end up in the House of Representatives, and I'd say our Republican odds at that point would be pretty good.
It is a very dysfunctional House, but I think they could coalesce around that, yes.
I think they would.
What are you looking at, Brett?
Well, 8 years ago, you may remember, it was a while before we sensed that the Trump upset was happening. And one of the earliest indicators we got was from the betting odds, which I was at a farther point on the panel that night. By the time you got to me, about everything smart had been said. So I started talking about the betting odds. Well, I've followed them ever since. Tonight, as we started this broadcast, Trump stood a 58% chance, according to the betting odds, of winning the election. As I read this off the screen now, 69.2%. So whoever's doing the betting out there and affecting these odds is increasingly of the view that he will win the election.
And how much does it impact it that, you know, it's the first year that you're seeing some of these betting markets in the United States? Because there's a lot of people who are playing them probably in a fundamental way.
These odds, composed by Maxim Lott and John Stossel, are from Betfair, Smarkets, Predicted, Polymarket, Kalshi, and
The basket.
It's a basket. It's an average.
Dana, what are you looking at?
I am looking at some of just on X, watching some of the Democrats complain about the Electoral College. And, you know, about a week ago, there was some conventional wisdom that she could actually win the Electoral College, but that Trump would win the popular vote. And then there would be no complaints about the Electoral College from them if that were to happen. So obviously it's too soon to call, but I'm certainly watching that to see what they're going to say. Plus, I have been wondering about Kamala Harris and this whole decision of Biden to run again when she knew that he was incapable, but they were still asking their donors, give us all your money. He's okay for 4 more years. And obviously he wasn't. But then that did not leave her enough time, apparently, that's another complaint that they have, for her to introduce herself, even though they had over $1 billion to do it.
And they had 100 days, Harold, and she passed up a lot of opportunities early on. I think we went for I don't know, 40 days or something with no press conference, and it took a really long time for her to finally sit down with Brett and have a substantive interview. I mean, there was time.
Sure. Again, we're acting like this thing is over. I hear you.
No, we're not. No, we're not. I was just playing off of Dana's point.
But I do think after the debate, she performed so well against Trump. She asked for another debate. I thought that the interview that Brett did with her was as substantive an interview as we've seen with her throughout the last several years. You would have thought, because she did well there, that she would want to go and do more of them. But
more interviews?
More interviews to sit down and talk.
After the one with Brett?
After the one with Brett.
She booted the question about when she first knew that he was not himself.
Well, I have a slightly different opinion on it. I thought she did. She gave in that interview, and I thought if I were her, I'd have gotten out and done more. But she did some, and
she was so cautious.
She gave a pre-debate answer. She said Biden's great. He's fine. I've seen him do all this wonderful stuff.
I would have done it very differently than her. However,
I'm sure you would have.
But the way she did it, she put herself in a position to be 50-50 here this evening. And if we're to believe Trey, this thing could be listening to the two smart guys in the green room. It could be 269. She must have done something right. I still look at Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. Since 1980, those three states have not gone all together other than 1988. Dukakis got Wisconsin and HW won the other two. If the numbers are tracking right and continue along those lines, we could find ourselves in a position where we're having a conversation about a Congress. Then it would be curious, Sean, if the Democrats win the House. How does that play into it? Look, I hope we don't get there because I don't want this fight. The country doesn't need this division. But the House
does the president and the Senate does the vice president. So you could end up with President Trump and Vice President Harris.
But they vote after the election.
They vote after the election, and it's only one vote per delegation. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Senator Smith is digging into the voter analysis stuff and how it tracks with the raw vote and what we're seeing.
Just trying to keep feeding your conversation there. And Martha, I know you were asking about the suburban vote and what we're seeing with our Fox News voter analysis and some really interesting findings I'll put up here for you. As far as the suburban voters concerned, this is what we're seeing in Pennsylvania. Okay, suburban voters. Kamala Harris right now has the lead, okay? But this is about a 6-point difference. And if you were to put this in perspective with what we saw in 2020, Biden was leading with this group, suburban voters in Pennsylvania, by 10 percentage points. This is a 6-point margin by which she's leading. So she is not leading with the suburban voter in Pennsylvania by the same margin as Joe Biden in 2020. All right, if I were to break that out by gender, this is also telling another story, okay? Suburban women, Martha, you were asking about this. This is what we're seeing in Pennsylvania. Obviously, they have been courting those voters on the ground there. This is almost identical, the margin that she's leading by. Joe Biden led by this over Donald Trump in 2020. So not a lot of movement there. We also talked about the story that was developing with the black voters down in Georgia. I can also report to you, Brett and Martha, right now that Donald Trump, is leading by more with the black voter in Pennsylvania than he was in 2020. Back to you guys.
So big numbers. Yeah. You got a call to make.
Fox News can now project that Donald Trump will win the state of Ohio 54.2% to 45%. So obviously that was what was anticipated in the early polling. He was ahead by about 8 points. This is a 9-point stretch, so a little bit higher than the most recent polling was showing in the state of Ohio, but a solid win for him in what used to be a swing state, but hasn't been for quite some time.
And obviously there's 54% of the vote in, but as you look at the Electoral College, 195 to 113. Again, Ohio used to be the swingiest of swing states, no longer, very Republican, much like Florida. And now it ticks on. Obviously, we're looking at these battleground states. One of them, Sean Hannity, it seems, is Virginia. You just got a message from the governor?
I've been communicating with Governor Youngkin, and the last text, at one point I said, so it's not in reach. He just said, hold on, really tight. Yeah. Exact quote from Glenn Youngkin. Here's what's interesting. All night I've been looking for an answer to the question about turnout in Philly and the suburbs of Philly. We talked earlier about the university population. That's one part of the population. But the vote lead was 700,000 below what they were in 2020. So that a lot of ground to make up. From the Trump campaign, now take it, this is what they're saying. They believe this is going to be a tortoise hare kind of night for them in Pennsylvania, in as much as They don't even think Harris got 200,000 of the 700 that she needs to make up. Those are the numbers that they are saying. Now, if that is true, that would mean African-American turnout did not appear to the number and degree that they wanted. And secondarily, any other vote they thought, the union vote, workers are not going her way either in Pennsylvania. Anecdotal, that's their side, but I'm telling you what they're thinking.
That raises obvious questions. You know, if you're Joe Biden at the White House right now, sitting at home, you're thinking, I'm Scranton Joe, and I have this great relationship with the unions all these years. And if she does end up, and we just want to continue to caution that we're waiting for a lot of data to come in here, he's shaking his head and saying, I could have won.
It's just interesting that they're analyzing this data like we all are.
Yes.
And that is their take on it. I'm sure the Harris campaign, for the better part of the night, I was hearing from either reporters or Democrats. Believe it or not, I have a few of those friends. And I was hearing from them, oh, huge turnout in Philly, huge turnout in Philly. And I said, tell me, where was the turnout? Could never get an answer.
Right.
And so finally, now the answer is beginning to come in. And that would be the Trump War Room. That would be the Mar-a-Lago crowd. Their degree of confidence is going up minute by minute. Take that for what it's worth.
Okay, Harold, let me just ask you this. I was in communication with Harris folks, with Democrats. They haven't had anything in a while. I mean, are you hearing anything from?
My communication resembles yours. I've not had a lot of that either. I think these numbers are concerning. The numbers that Sandra is raising on the other side there, combined with what you just said, Sean, is room for concern in both Virginia and Pennsylvania. So I've not heard anything either.
Okay. The polls are closed in battleground Wisconsin. We're going to check in there on the ground with senior correspondent Mike Tobin in Milwaukee, learning about some issues with more than a dozen tabulation machines. What's that about, Mike?
More than a dozen tabulation machines and 31,000 ballots. And as a result, the city put out an all-call for volunteers. So they've got firefighters, healthcare workers, and IT workers all showing up here to help with the retabulation of those 31,000 ballots. Now, the heart of the problem, I can show you as we zoom in over my shoulder, are these tabulation machines. There are 13 of these tabulation machines here at Central Count. If you look close to the back of that machine, there are stickers on the back of the machine. Those act as the seal. The seals were in place, according to city officials and election commission officials, but there's a locking mechanism there as well. A Republican observer noted that the locking mechanisms had not been engaged. First, we were told on one machine, then some of the machines, then all 13 machines. 31,000 ballots in question. The city says they believe the integrity of those votes was never compromised. Still, out of 107,000 ballots, those now need to be retabulated. Some 43,000 ballots have been counted here as of this point, but they've got these additional volunteers to try to speed up the process. We expected to get final numbers somewhere around 1 or 2 a.m. The city now only says it's going to be later than that. The city wants to pass this off as an abundance of caution, or a very cautious move. Republicans are upset about it. The RNC chairs, Michael Whatley and Laura Trump, put out a statement calling this an unacceptable example of incompetence. Wisconsin officials are here to try to get some questions answered. Brett and Martha?
It's a long night in Milwaukee. Thank you, Mike. So the Fox News decision desk can now project that Vice President Harris will win Delaware, the home state of President Biden. And there is the look at the race to 270. That makes it Trump 195, Harris 113 at this hour. And we have another call to make as well.
In a key governor's race, Fox News can now project that Republican Kelly Ayotte will become the next governor of New Hampshire. She defeats Democrat Joyce Gregg. And that was a close race for a while, but Kelly Ayotte will win there. Here are a couple of other results we're getting as our Democracy 24 coverage continues. It'll be on the screen all night long.
America is watching. Democracy 24, your freedom, your vote.
The votes are in. The next president of the United States is...
Lord, to you we entrust our communities, our leaders, our president, our country. We give it all up to you.
Jesus, we trust in you. Amen.
At Simply Safe, your safety is the only thing that matters. We designed smarter ways to detect motion for fast emergency response. We create HD cameras so you can see what's happening in your home from anywhere. All powered by Fast Protect technology. Exclusively from Simply Safe for faster police response. Get Simply Safe today with no contracts or cancellation fees, so you're never locked in. There's no safe like Simply Safe.
Pause for the facts. Classic first-timers. They don't know that nearly half of all used cars have been in an accident. But Carfax shows how accidents impact price, so they don't have to overpay. Unpause.
Ooh, one with no accidents.
Shop the all-new Carfax.com.
What is the dumbest thing you've ever wasted money on?
I was paying for 2 Netflix accounts over like 3 years.
How'd you figure that out?
I saw an app that shows you all the monthly subscriptions you have and how much you're paying.
What is the app called?
Rocket Money.
Here's why you should switch from Google to DuckDuckGo on all your devices. DuckDuckGo comes with a built-in search engine like Google, but it's private and doesn't spy on your searches. And DuckDuckGo lets you browse like Chrome, but it blocks cookies and creepy ads that follow you around from Google and other companies. And there's no catch. It's free. We make money from ads, but they don't follow you around. Join the millions of people taking back their privacy by downloading DuckDuckGo on all your devices today.
Everyone's forgotten who runs this valley. Time to remind them.
You will ruin this family's name.
You destroy me, you destroy yourself.
I took all the risk, and I took it for you. The only thing left to do is to kill as much as you can before they kill you.
Yellowstone. Watch on Paramount Network this week.
Fox News Decision Desk can now project that Texas Senator Ted Cruz will have a third term, and he has defeated Democratic Congressman, former NFL player Colin Allred. There was some movement in this race. It tightened a little bit, and there was some discussion that maybe Ted Cruz might lose his seat, but he has handily.
Do you know how much money they poured into that race?
Yeah.
Democrats poured a ton of money into that race. Colin Allred was a good candidate.
Absolutely, a good debater.
Minus being in Texas, I mean, he was really a really good Democratic candidate. As you look at the balance of power, 47 to 37. Again, West Virginia has already flipped, majority at 51. We're looking at states like Ohio, the Sherrod Brown race, Montana, the John Tester race, as a possible flip in the U.S. Senate. Brooke Taylor is at the Cruz campaign headquarters in Houston. Check in with Brooke. Good evening.
Good evening. I could tell you some behind-the-scenes info right now. We have Fox News playing on both screens right now. The crowd right now going wild because we just threw up the race and we have Cruz again with that strong lead. So everyone here is very excited, but I could tell you from talking to the Cruz campaign that they have been taking this race extremely seriously. When you think of Texas, you think of this deep red state. A Democrat has not won an election here in 30 years, so since 1994. But again, since 2018, Democrats have really seen an opportunity to possibly switch the seat. We saw it with Beto O'Rourke. Cruz won by just 3 points, and Cruz's campaign hoping to have a real win here. They are not going to make that mistake. They are going to take this extremely seriously. But again, the crowd here going wild. They are very excited about this. I will toss it back to you guys.
Okay, Brooke Taylor, thanks so much.
Let's bring in Pete Hegseth, who is at a honky-tonk in Nashville.
Of course he is.
Of course he is. Where else would we find you, Pete?
Stand by in a second. Hold on. Once I go like this, we got to wrap real quick. They're coming to us.
You're on.
Should we get Pete a drink?
Just stand by, everybody. We're coordinating with the mothership.
Pete, we are the mothership calling Pete Hegseth at the honky-tonk in Nashville. Can you hear us?
Hey, guys. Yes, I can hear you. I'm sorry, Brett and Martha. We're at Kid Rock's Honky Tonk in Nashville. I can't hear a thing. I can't hear myself think. And the crowd here is psyched because you're now on the TVs here in the bar as well. I'm here with Clay Travis, Morgan Ortegas, Tommy Laird. We just had Kid Rock himself. So while you're at home watching the returns on Fox, and everybody's watching you guys, and you're doing a phenomenal job, pull up Fox Nation on your second screen and have a party with us. Because I'll tell you, the vibes here on the ground, we're talking to voters today too, this feels a lot like the 2016 vibes as you see the results coming in. You can tell the crowd here, pretty psyched. They love watching you guys and what you're doing. If this sentiment isn't reflective of what's happening in this election, could be a very good night for Donald Trump. I can't hear you, but I love you.
All right, Pete, thank you so much.
Pete,
Sounds like they're
thanks a
having
lot.
a pretty good time there.
They are. We're back with our panel. Britt Hume,
Maybe
Dana Perino, Harold Ford Jr., Kayleigh McEnany, Sean Hannity, and Trey Gowdy. And Bill Hemmer just went behind the billboard, and I kind of was going to call him out there.
It's like the Wizard of Oz.
So they're saying that Harris people are looking at Erie County, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I was looking at it too. One thing to keep in mind here as we look at this data here is you got to remember how they count the votes, right? You know, they start processing at 7 a.m. this morning. All that's mail-in stuff too. And that's the vote that's put out first. And so I want to do something funky and fancy here, guys. So just bear with me, because I'm going to try and find Pennsylvania in 2020, okay? This is important. It's important for us to understand. It's important for our analysts to know, understand. It's important for the audience to understand at home. This is 4 years ago in Pennsylvania, okay? This is just a 24-hour span from November 3rd into November 4th, from 8 p.m. to 8 p.m. the following day. And the vote that count that came in here, right, it's heavily blue, well over 70%. And then around 11 p.m., you get across the line. And that's where the Republican vote started coming in for Trump. Then you went well past midnight, and Trump maintained his margin for almost the entire day on Wednesday. And then if you went further off this map, you see where eventually the bars there cross the other way for Joe Biden, okay? So with that in mind, okay, we're going to show you Pennsylvania, and we'll try and digest all this together now. I haven't looked here in some time. You only have a quarter of the vote in now, okay? So at least 75% is still out. And you see a lot of blue in the areas where Kamala Harris needs to do well, namely Pittsburgh, Allegheny County, and namely Philadelphia and what they call the collar counties around Philadelphia. But the argument for this hour is that there's a strong Democratic vote in that batch that's now been counted, okay? There's two counties in Pennsylvania that you watch because they are bellwethers and they are flippers too, okay? One is Erie along the border here with New Jersey. One is Erie up there in Lake Erie. This is Northampton here in the east, okay? Northampton is one of these counties that flipped last time around, all right? Kamala Harris with a lead with 27% of the vote reporting there in Northampton. The other one is Erie that I mentioned a moment ago, okay? This is up on the lakefront here, all right? I don't know why we're getting 0% in, because there is some of this vote that may lend itself to some of the confusion with the early vote being tabulated from the mail. I don't know. I can't vouch for that. I'm not sure what's going on there. We're going to watch the less than 0.5%. Yeah, that's right. So it's like 0.5% of the votes now being tabulated. That's why we can't get to 1% there in Erie County. But in all likelihood, you're going to see the T start to form here in Pennsylvania. And the T is going to be all red. And we're going to see what happens on, both sides of the state. And they're going to be blue. The question is, how blue will they be? So we'll watch that here. You guys didn't mention Virginia. We'll just pop on down here because it seems like there's a pretty good race going on right now, right? Trump has just upped his margin here, right? So he's got about a 2-point lead statewide. Too soon to call, I should say, with more than half of the vote in. Here is where you need to look, all right? This is Washington, D.C. This is Fairfax County, #1 populated county in all of 133. There's 40% of the vote that has not yet been tabulated into this, okay?
Biden, sorry to interrupt.
Sorry, what's that?
Where was it for Biden? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll show you. I sure will. So a lot of that 40% outstanding is going to go for Harris, but we just don't know how much in the most populated county, okay? So go back 4 years. This is 2020. This is Joe Biden at 70%. Okay, so Kamala Harris, she has time to make up for that, given the fact that that vote is still out. And I would say, too, his margin on a percentage basis was a bit higher, about 2 points, 242,000 in a state 4 years ago. Sorry, excuse me. I apologize. Let's go statewide here. In a state that was determined by 11,779. Let me go to my cheat sheet here, guys, all right? I can do something that's a little ugly, but for the sake of the audience at home and for our knowledge too, this was Georgia in 2020. Wow, look at this. Okay, again, we've taken a 24-hour period from 4 years ago. Blue is the Democratic vote, obviously red is the Republican vote. And you see all this, you know, at 7 o'clock, boy, it was all over the place, okay? And then in the 8 o'clock hour, Trump easily took a lead there. And then the margins started to close overnight around 3 a.m. The lines moved and they moved and they moved for several days until finally we reached that margin of 12,000 votes separating Biden from Trump in the Peach State. So.
But the difference would be that was the COVID election, and that was a lot of mail-in vote, right. And that was not the same early vote for Republicans, right?
Yeah, I would argue you're right about that in Georgia. I think the important thing to keep in mind is how states report it. Yeah. And Pennsylvania is a really good example here where you're going to get a heavy blue, some would argue mirage in the beginning, and we'll see whether or not that mirage is real throughout the night, and maybe even into tomorrow.
Bill?
Yes.
Broadly speaking, there'll be some exceptions to this. Does it appear to you that she is underperforming Biden nearly everywhere?
It's a great question, Britt. This is just anecdotal. I answer the best way I can. I've been poking around all over this map. I can find some good news for her by a point here, a point there. I can find a lot of good news for him, a point here and a point there. But it seems where the areas where she is gaining the most is where the votes are. And the areas where he's gaining the most is the area that he targeted, and that's the rural area. Whether or not you can extrapolate that over a place like Hall County, 72%, right? Banks County, 89%. Now, the problem for him is that that's 94 out of 159. But I can move along the northern border of Georgia. And, you know, it's just, yeah, it's dominating. Well, 81.
How does it compare to 2020?
I'll show you that next here. Look at that. I mean, that's 86. Now, 2020, in the same counties, I'll go in reverse, all right? 84, still impressive, right? 81.
And what is it now?
82 right now. So this is Fannin County. There's about 14,000 votes in that county alone. 14,000, okay? Now, if you take that and extrapolate over 159 counties, it can certainly add up. So to answer your question, Britt, 4 years ago, Fannin County was 82, and this year he's at 80. Still 25% of the votes still out, so he's got a chance to do a point or two better. But right now, he's not meeting the number that he hit in that rural county 4 years ago.
We're going to make a quick call, and we'll come back to the board and the panel. The Fox News decision desk can now project that Vice President Harris will win the state of New Hampshire. Former President Trump came closer than many expected there, but the vice president did well in cities and suburban areas. There was a time that New Hampshire they thought was closing. Actually, and we saw that Kelly Ayotte wins in the governor's race there, but now we're calling that for Vice President Harris.
She's a former senator for New Hampshire, popular in the state, but not enough to really turn New Hampshire red in this situation. So the Maryland Senate race we have for you next. The Democrat Angela Brooks will defeat former Republican Governor Larry Hogan. He never really was able to move past her. It was obviously a difficult race for the former governor as he tried to become a senator.
So that sticks as far as the U.S. Senate goes. We're still on track. There's a one pickup for Republicans, and again, they're looking to Ohio and West Virginia. Maybe a couple of other races. Montana. Still waiting on Michigan and obviously Pennsylvania about where that goes.
And Montana, which isn't closed yet. Obviously a very hopeful pickup for Republicans with Tim Sheehy.
Back with the panel. Kaylee, what are you looking at? What do you feel?
So I'm looking at the suburbs, and first I would say the map, and again it's early, but it seems to be breaking more like 2016 than 2020, but we will see. But when you look at the suburbs, the Kamala Harris team was making much of the fact that early on we saw the suburbs of Indianapolis, Donald Trump underperforming. They point to Fayette County in Georgia. But then we get our Fox News voter analysis, and you see in Pennsylvania that Kamala is not hitting the suburban marks that Joe Biden did. You look at Hillsborough County, Florida. That is Tampa. It's almost urban, if you will. And Hillary won by 7. Biden won by 7. At this hour, you have Donald Trump leading by 3 in Hillsborough County. And let me say this. This is, I think, should be discussed, hasn't been discussed, but it might have bigger implications for the Republican Party moving Florida. And that is the fact that the Republican Party has lost every pro-life ballot initiative post-Dobbs until tonight in Florida, when you see Amendment 4 went down. And the difference was you had a leader, you had a governor, Governor DeSantis, who owned the issue, who talked about the issue, who was out on the airwaves on the issue. And I'm told by some sources familiar with these 10 initiatives happening across the country, they're hopeful in Nebraska. Why? You had Pete Ricketts lean into the issue. So that might be a lesson that's instructive moving forward to the party. You've got to speak on this issue because hiding from it thus far has not worked.
Let's just say this, Trey, that both of these candidates at this hour still have a path to 270. It is wide open. There's a number of different ways to go. Who would you rather be right now?
I'd probably rather be him because she is underperforming where Biden was in states that are very close. I'm also watching the Senate because what does it profit a person to win the presidency if you don't have the Senate to get your cabinet? Nebraska is interesting to me. Who is he going to caucus with if the independent wins? I don't think he will, but who will he caucus with? Because if Donald Trump wins the presidency, you got to get around Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins to get your desired cabinet. And if you're Kamala Harris and you win the presidency, you ain't getting your desired cabinet if you have a Republican Senate.
Yep.
I'm going to make a prediction, go out on a little bit of a limb here. I am growing more and more confident as I sit here and listen to everybody, and I am talking to people that know their states as well as anybody. I think the finest numbers people, finest sources. I don't think it will be very long until you call North Carolina for Donald Trump. I think Georgia will immediately follow thereafter. Then we would be at a point, I also believe Arizona is baked in. Immigration was a big issue out there. That now means that would bring us to a point in this race. If I am right, if I'm wrong, everybody call me out. Hannity was wrong. We'll have T-shirts. I'll sell them on DonaldTrump.com. Okay. But if that's true, that means she would have to sweep the blue wall.
Yep.
And based on the information that we have and the early voting success of the Republicans in both Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, I don't think she can do it.
So with that prediction, we're going to take a quick break. The race to 270 continues. We're about to get our first look at the state of play in the battleground state of Nevada. Our special coverage continues after this.
You believe you were sent by God?
Yes.
Repent! Come and be baptized in the River Jordan!
I speak in the name of the one true God!
Good Ranchers is delivering American-sourced proteins the way it used to be, from farm to family.
Over 30% of the food sold in grocery stores goes to waste, and many of us don't.
Just after Election Day on a special Fox and Friends tomorrow.
Hi, Grandma. I played baseball today.
Oh, that's great.
What position did you play?
First base.
That's what Grandpa used to play. When our hearing wouldn't allow us to use a regular phone, it made us feel isolated.
It became difficult to communicate with our friends and family.
Clear Captions was an easy solution for us.
Clear Captions provides captions on a phone like captioning on your TV, so you can see what the caller is saying live as they say it.
Making it easy to understand and respond immediately.
There is no insurance or Medicare required. Clear Captions service is provided at no cost to you through a federally funded program. We deliver, install, and train you on how to use your phone, all at no cost to you.
Give your loved ones the independence and connection they deserve.
Call now to see if you qualify to get a Clear Captions phone at no cost to you.
Call 1-800-275-1095. That's 1-800-275-1095.
I got this $1,000 camera for only $41 on DealDash.
DealDash.com. Online auctions since 2009. This PlayStation 5 sold for only 50 cents.
This iPad Pro sold for less than $34. And this Nintendo Switch sold for less than $20.
I got this KitchenAid stand mixer for only $56. I got this barbecue smoker for $26.
And shipping is always free.
Go to DealDash.com right now and see how much you can save.
9:43 on the East Coast. Let's take you through some of these key states because nothing that has happened so far is shocking at this point. Most of it, we're watching Virginia and we're waiting for North Carolina. But some of this has laid out in a way that is not unpredictable. But let's look at Pennsylvania for a moment here and see how Pennsylvania is shaping up at this hour. And you see you've got a 47 to 52 percentage, and I'm trying to see the percentage that is in right now in Pennsylvania, 32%, thank you. So we're waiting for a lot more vote to come in Pennsylvania, and what we're hearing is it's not surprising. The order that the vote has been coming in Pennsylvania is not surprising to the red team, at least at this point. There's Wisconsin, 47.9 to 50%, and Wisconsin has 23% of the vote in. Also expected.
Late night. Brett, Martha, back to you.
Okay, great.
Brady, thank you very much.
You know, there's some Democrats saying North Carolina is on the edge. I don't think they're fully agreeing with Sean. And they still may make T-shirts. But
well, I'm not only saying North Carolina. I am saying North Carolina and Georgia will go Donald Trump tonight. And I am as confident in that prediction as any I've ever made.
Wow. Okay. Bill Hemmer tracking that. Are we backing that up on the wall?
You know, I tell you what, Sean, if in the end you're right about that here in North Carolina, I showed you this county last hour, right? This is Anson County, up to 47% African-American population. You know, sometimes in these elections where you see an outcome, you're like, that hasn't happened in 100 years. Well, something just happened for the first time since 1876 in North Carolina, and a Republican won this county for the second time since the 1870s. So I just like something to like stick in the back of your head and think about, well, that was a data point along the way. You guys mentioned the blue wall. Let's go ahead. We're moving toward the central time zone. We're talking about Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. I can show you a lot of stuff right now, okay? But this is anecdotal stuff. It's just the data points that I'm seeing on the map, okay? When you go to Wisconsin, all right, you have to look at Dane County, the University of Wisconsin. In the midterms, they had more than 85% voter turnout in one county, okay? You're going to get a ton of Democratic votes out of here, okay? You're just about halfway into it right now, and you see the margins. But I was poking through this and looking at Milwaukee. Now, there's a lot of votes out there, okay? You only got 25% coming in right now. Kamala Harris has almost 66%. So this is where Joe Biden finished. Same county, same city 4 years ago. He was almost at 70%. Right now, she is underperforming in Milwaukee. So you have to ask yourself, you know, that little pattern you saw back there in that rural county in North Carolina, is it repeating itself in some of these bigger cities? No, is Detroit, you know, right now Detroit, Wayne County's red. We don't expect it to stay that way, but that's one of the things you look at as well. This is Washtenaw County. That's Ann Arbor, University of Michigan. You expect to get a good number here. That's another county to watch as well. And then let's flip over here and just complete the blue wall, because this is where we are right now in Pennsylvania. Remember, we showed you how the mail vote, heavily Democratic, is put out first, and we still think we're probably seeing a lot of that right now in this composition. But let's go ahead and look now. Let's look at the vote difference in Pennsylvania. And what we've done here is we've gone back to the year 2000, okay? So you have 6 presidential races to look at. For so long, this was not even a battleground. It was heavily Democratic. when you think about what Barack Obama did in 2008, look at that. I mean, that's 10 points. It's off the map. Romney was able to cut it in half, and so the state came back a little bit toward the Republican Party. It really wasn't until 2016 when Donald Trump won the state by just less than a point. Let's look at the vote difference now for Michigan. Very similar, maybe not as extended, okay? Some would argue more Democratic in Michigan, all right? But that was the difference in 2016 for Trump, 0.2 percentage points, you know? And you see where Obama was. That was not contested. Look at the vote difference down in Wisconsin. Very similar. Blue, but not nearly as extreme. In fact, if you take out the Obama years in 08 and 2012, you find Wisconsin is, I find, guys, this to be the swingiest state you find out there, all right? Back in 2000, when we're looking at Florida, look what happened in Wisconsin. 4 years later, John Kerry, look what happened. You see Donald Trump in 2016, it's just by a nose he was able to win. And then when it went back to Biden in 2020, again, it was super tight, okay? All those races, 4 out of 6 over the past 20 years have been decided by less than 8 points. And it might well be the case again tonight. In the land of cheeseheads. Let's go ahead and clear this right now, okay?
Bill, can we go to Wisconsin?
Yeah, we sure can.
Because, go ahead.
We want to see how this is shaping up. I mentioned Dane a moment ago, and I also mentioned Milwaukee. Sean Duffy, one of our colleagues, former congressman for the state of Wisconsin, when he ran for Congress, all this area here was blue, okay? And when he went to Washington, it all flipped, it all became red, and it stayed that way. It's been a source of political strength and power for Donald Trump, and we'll see whether or not that remains the case right now. All right? Just so you know, we're just about the 30% mark in Wisconsin, and Kamala Harris has a slight lead there by about 3 points. This is where it ended, as I showed you out there on the map, right? 20,682 raw votes 4 years ago. So if I were to come to 2024, what am I looking at? I'm looking at Dane.
How about Sauk and Kenosha?
Yeah, Sauk is right here. Sauk is pretty interesting here because, you know, you start to see a little more population growth, and Trump has a lead here. And again, this is Kennedy. He popped up in Michigan. He's going to pop up in Wisconsin all night long. Trump has a lead here. Let's just go ahead and see. We got half of the vote in here in Wisconsin. This is where it finished. I find that interesting.
What about
Don't
Kenosha?
You? Let's find Kenosha down.
Remember, this is the swingiest state. I mean, I spent some time there on 2 recall elections with Governor Scott Walker.
I mean, it's extraordinary. And we don't think about it that way. But it's true. Anyway, this is Kenosha, Brett. You asked for it. You got it. You got about half the vote in. Trump's just shy of 58%. Okay, so he's overperforming now in Kenosha as well. I can keep going if you want, so call it out, guys, if you like.
Milwaukee County?
Sorry?
Milwaukee, is that what it's called? Just north of?
Yeah, so the WOW counties here, they have been solid Republican forever, you know, but not during the Trump years. They got softer and softer, and they are, Wasaki here, just west of Milwaukee is one of them. Sorry, Waukesha, excuse me. And then you get into Washington, and then you get into, over in the lake is Ozaki here. So let's see what we're doing right now. Trump at 53.5. All right, comparison point, 2020. Okay, so a little bit under right now in that suburban county north of Milwaukee. Let's pop on over here to Washington and see what we're doing. 70% is an impressive percentage, all right? From 4 years ago, what'd he do? So a little bit better right there in Washington County. Then we'll move over here. This is the most populated of the 3, Waukesha, just west of Milwaukee, just shy of 60% raw votes, shy of 40,000 from 4 years ago. Okay, all right, so he ended up with 55,000 net. So he either has some space to make up or he's not going to get to the number from 4 years ago. So that's something to watch. The WOW counties there in Milwaukee. My favorite county in all of Wisconsin, maybe my favorite county in the entire map this year, right here. You know what this is, Brett and Martha?
Door County.
It's Door County, okay? And why do we talk about Door County? First of all, you don't want to be there in the winter, okay? Because it's cold and it's frozen, but in the summertime, it's got to be beautiful. Half the vote in. Trump has an edge here. 4 years ago, you see what happened here. Biden won it, all right? Go back to 2024. 34. Let's go statewide. Watch all the map go into play here, okay? This is a flipper county in Wisconsin, all right? The shade of blue is just very slight, okay? So it shows you how close it was. So we'll keep an eye on it because sometimes those are the bellwethers statewide. We'll see whether that develops down Wisconsin.
All right.
Thank you, Bill.
Little Wisconsin for you.
Little trip to Wisconsin.
Yeah, sure.
Up to Door County in the Great Lakes. And obviously, this is going to be an area that is going to probably tell the story of this election, that and the Sun Belt, of course. So we're getting close to 10 o'clock, right around the corner. That is when we will get poll closings in Utah, Montana, and Nevada. This is our special coverage, kicks into high gear, and the electoral count continues to load in. 195 for Trump, 117 for Vice President Harris.
There are some things that work better together, like your workplace benefits and retirement savings.
Presentation looks great.
Thanks. Voya provides tools that help you make the right investment and benefit choices so you can reach today's financial goals, that one, and look forward to a more confident future.
That is one dynamic duo. Voya. Well planned, well invested, well protected.
Grr. What's Simply Safe got that I don't?
24/7 monitoring to help stop crime in real time.
Stop. This is Simply Safe.
Maybe Simply Safe and I could work together.
Unlikely.
There's no safe like Simply Safe.
Before Apoquel Chewable for allergic itch, giving dogs pills was a battle of wits.
Oh, Maria, I'm wise to your foolish game.
Is it gone?
Totally gone.
Itch relief just got easier. Apoquel, the trusted #1 treatment for allergic itch, is now available in a tasty chewable that works in a day.
Do not use in dogs with serious infections. May cause worsening of existing parasitic skin infestations or pre-existing cancers and serious infections. New neoplasias have been observed. Do not use in dogs less than 12 months old.
Ask your vet for Apoquel Chewable.
Do it.
I got this $1,000 camera for only $41 on DealDash.
DealDash.com. Online auctions since 2009. This PlayStation 5 sold for only 50 cents. This iPad Pro sold for less than $34. And this Nintendo Switch sold for less than $20.
I got this KitchenAid stand mixer for only $56. I got this barbecue smoker for $26.
And shipping is always free.
Go to DealDash.com right now and see how much you can save.
I'm Tony Steen, digital strategist at AmericanEagle.com. Our clients have complex website and digital marketing needs. Badgley Mischka, a high-end fashion brand, needed to expand their online presence, reach new customers, and increase online sales. We solve digital challenges like this all the time. We implemented a digital marketing strategy that more than doubled their online sales through management of email marketing, paid search, SEO, and social media. For results-driven digital marketing solutions, go to AmericanEagle.com.
Our God calls us!
Election night unfolding before our eyes. We've got a lot happening as you take a look at the big board on the scorecard. Right now, the electoral vote count stands at former President Trump at 195 to Vice President Harris at 117.
We're still waiting, obviously, for Georgia to fill in and North Carolina to fill in. But there's a lot of discussion about that outstanding vote and whether or not it will meet the level that Vice President Harris would have to meet. And we've been talking about Philadelphia County. She would have to clear 700,000 votes in order to...
In 2020,
Yeah. All right, so let's go to Jeff Paul from the headquarters of Republican Senate candidate Sam Brown. And what's going on there? Hi, Jeff.
We'll be there in a little bit right when it starts, but right now we are outside maybe one of the biggest and most expensive polling centers in the country. This is Allegiant Stadium, home of the Las Vegas Raiders. And one of the things I want to mention to you folks at home is that people are still showing up here to cast their ballot. We are a minute away from polls closing, roughly a minute away from polls closing. And under Nevada law, if you are in line by 7 o'clock, you have the right to vote. And we are hearing about some instances where there are some pretty long lines throughout the state. Also keep in mind that they will not release any results anywhere in the state of Nevada until the last person in the state votes. So we could be looking at a very long night ahead of us here in the state of Nevada. Martha?
All right, Jeff Paul, thank you so much. We're waiting now for these calls at 10 o'clock, and we're looking at basically a scenario where the Democrats are putting all their hope in the blue wall. The question is, what happens when we make a call in North Carolina and Georgia? If you believe Sean Hannity, it's coming soon. We'll see if it does. It is time to see how many more electoral votes will fall as we get ready for our next calls.
Stay tuned.
We are seconds away from 3 states, including Montana, Utah, plus the critical battleground.
Together we will fight to win Nevada.
Nevada, we fight for the future.
With 16 electoral votes on the line, we have the results as they come in. The moment is here. America is watching.
Going very quickly, it is now 10 p.m. here in New York. 3 more states in the West have just finished voting. Fox News Decision Desk, too early to call. The state of Nevada, one of the most competitive states in play. Hispanic and working class voters obviously could be key to the victory there. Both of these candidates have spent a lot of time in Nevada.
Fox News can project that former President Trump will win the state of Utah, adding another 6 votes, electoral votes to his column. He'll also win Montana's presidential election. We're looking closely at that Senate race out there.
Ad-lib. Oh.
Yes, you will.
I just did that. All right, so let's take a look at some of the places that are too early to call, and let's get you an update on the total count. President Trump at 205 right now, 117 for Harris, and waiting on Georgia, waiting on North Carolina, waiting on Pennsylvania, waiting on Michigan. And, just keep in mind that in all these places, there's a lot of city vote, a lot of high population concentrated vote that has not come in yet. The question is whether or not that vote, when it does come in, will be enough to outbalance what we have seen in the early part of this vote here.
Montana, as we mentioned, also home to this pivotal Senate race. Longtime rural Democratic Senator John Tester in the political fight of his life this time. He survived it before, but this time Republican former Navy SEAL Tim Sheehy putting up a real fight and may win. The Fox News Decision Desk says it's too early to call there. Nevada also home, too early to call, to this Senate race between incumbent Democratic Senator Jackie Rosen and Republican Army veteran Sam Brown.
But in Utah, Fox News is projecting the Republican Congressman John Curtis will move to the Senate. He succeeds retiring Senator Mitt Romney of Utah. Let's take a look at the balance of power as we pull up the Senate here and show you where we are at 10:01 in the evening. Republicans now have 48 seats, including the West Virginia seat, which is a flip. Majority obviously would be 51. 38 seats on the Democratic side as we wait for a number of very consequential Senate races to come in here this evening.
Well, welcome to the panel. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity is still here. Jesse Waters. Jesse, what are you thinking?
Well, if this was a cannonball contest, Trump would be winning by a lot because of the huge splash in Florida. I mean, he beat Biden by 3, and now he's at almost 14 over Harris. That's a big statement right out of the gate. She has not had a big statement so far tonight. The other big splash, Virginia. Now, we don't know how Virginia's going to shake out, but Biden won Virginia by 10, and now it's tied. Obviously, it's too close to call, but right now she's playing defense. The Trump team is very confident that Georgia and North Carolina are going to go their way, and Harris is going to have to play defense in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. You're hearing Trump doubling his black support in Wisconsin, ahead with young voters in Michigan, and in Pennsylvania winning independents. And they say the math doesn't work in Philadelphia County, so who knows what's going to happen? Still too early to call, but you definitely think the Trump team has momentum here.
Laura, Virginia, you were talking about earlier. We'll put up the big board about Virginia and show that race. There you see the 50% to 48.3, 61% in. Too soon to call for us.
Well, this is wild. Remember, Trump didn't come anywhere near these numbers in 2016 or 2020. The Loudoun County numbers that we were talking about earlier are really something to watch. Trump is outperforming by 8 points in Loudoun County. It was a blowout in 2020. big issue with education there. The other thing to look at, and Glenn Youngkin, I've been in touch with him, he said, buckle up, Virginia's going to be very tight. Then go down to Miami-Dade, where we haven't seen a Republican take that county in Florida since 1988. Donald Trump is doing something tonight. The New York Times is noticing he's up at 287 electoral votes projected. Obviously, anything can happen, with a 72% chance of winning. Watch out for slowing vote reporting down in the blue wall states. It happened last time in 2020. And if by midnight it looks like Trump has a good chance to win and things start slowing down with reporting, I think you can't really blame people for being a little bit concerned about the way we do reporting in elections.
Yeah.
I have more of a question actually for Laura, if that's okay, if it's permitted. On Loudoun County, in Loudoun County, can you talk to what is the issue? Is it the economy or is it the cultural issues? We've been having a little debate.
I think that the cultural issues cut through the new immigrant population in Loudoun County. There's an enormous influx of Indian immigrants, Hispanic immigrants, and Muslim immigrants in Loudoun County. And if you talk to them, and some reporting has been done on this, a couple of issues of the gender curriculum, some of the trans issues, but also in general, just this idea that the new immigrants coming to this country want to be able to start small businesses and make a decent living. And I think both issues are really hitting hard tonight.
And Loudoun County is the kind of place where you'd think it might be fertile ground for Democrats almost in perpetuity because of where it is. It's in the exurbs of Washington, but it is very close to that huge number of people who work in the Dulles Technology Corridor. And that looks like the kind of place young, tech-savvy people who would be prone generally to vote Democrat. And the fact that seems to be going the way it is tonight is I think,
a lot of
quite
credit
telling.
to Glenn Youngkin and obviously Donald Trump for the way that state was handled. They were smart to go there late in the game.
It's interesting to look at Virginia, and sometimes these things sort of take hold over a period of time, right? So Glenn Youngkin won his very close race, all about education, really, against Terry McAuliffe and parents' rights. But then in the midterms, Virginia did not get the seats that they wanted to get, and Youngkin was sort of trying to get them over that edge. So if this does, and we're, can't call it obviously yet, if it turns into a win for Trump tonight, it will be a very big
or even
sign.
close, Martha.
We have not called North Carolina.
We have not called it yet, nor Georgia.
I'm sure there are good reasons for that, but others have.
I understand. Harold?
Do we know what's outstanding in Virginia?
Let's just talk to Bill Hemmer because he's at the wall.
Yeah, I can do that for you. Don't mind me. This is Roanoke County. Why do I have that on the screen? That's Salem, Virginia. That's where Trump went for the rally the other day with Glenn Youngkin. Okay, so as you guys were talking here, all right, so this is part of our Fox Insights. Anytime we see an outline here, we go in Loudoun County. We've mentioned this, right? Now, this is a 16-point advantage for Kamala Harris. You've almost got all the estimated vote in right now, and Trump's doing 3.4 points better now with 98% of the vote reporting than he did in 2020. So that's pretty interesting. The other thing I would point out while I'm here is Fairfax County. All right, so you're almost at 2/3 of the vote in. This is where all the people are, right? Number one out of 133. Biden was an easy winner at 70% of the vote. So right now, across from Washington, D.C., she's underperforming in the most populated county in the entire state. Did you have something else there?
Do you have a question?
Gotcha. Okay, Carolina. Go ahead, guys.
So the Virginia, is that the biggest county, the Fairfax County? Is there another big county out? Because the campaigns are saying they've got big votes still out in Virginia. They still believe that they...
I tell you what I'll do, Harold. I'll cheat for a second here and go back to Virginia. It seems as if Kamala Harris is doing better in the southeastern part than was expected, okay? So there's still some vote out there, some vote coming in, and we'll see whether or not that holds up. Let me zip on down to Carolina. And Britt, I think you said some folks had called Carolina already. We've got about 70% of the vote in, and we've got Trump up,
4 points. 4 points.
Yeah, almost 5. 185,000 raw votes. And I don't know what's going on here. Why don't we just poke around some of the bigger counties, okay? This is Wake, this is Raleigh. You got to look there. 3/4 of the vote in. She's got a firm lead down here in Mecklenburg and Charlotte. A firm lead yet again, but there's 80% of the estimated votes still yet to be tallied, so maybe that's the reason why we cannot call it. This is a flipper down here. This is New Hanover. You find Wilmington along the Atlantic Shore. You've only got 5% of the vote in down there. This is one of those areas of the country that's turning more blue. You got a lot of transplants from the Northeast moving down into Wilmington. You also got a lot of folks from the Northeast going into places like Brunswick County. Brunswick County is deep in the red. Donald Trump's going to win here tonight by 66% upwards of the vote down there. Got a lot of folks from New Jersey and New York and Pennsylvania. They're moving down to places like Brunswick County because they love the weather, they love the beaches, and it's not as expensive as Florida. And they've seen an awful lot of growth in this part of the state. So here's where we are. Too soon to call, but Donald Trump right now up by almost 5 points in Carolina. Go for it, Martha.
Let's take a look at Pennsylvania, which is tightening up considerably, and in the presidential race and in the Senate race. Show us what's going on there.
You're exactly right about that. Okay, so there's about half of the vote being counted. You remember that chart I showed you a moment ago? The chart I showed you a moment ago? They count the mail-in vote first in Pennsylvania. It tends to be more Democratic. As we saw in 2020, we're seeing that again in 2024. All right, you got about a 1.4 margin there. Raw votes just shy of 50,000. So let's go for a spin, shall we? Philadelphia, let's start there. It is number one. Come on, let's go here. All right, here we go. This is the kind of margin you expect to get in Philadelphia. You got 8 or 9 out of 10 voters are Democratic, right? So Joe Biden was well over 80%. It's interesting, right? So she's just a tick below that right now. Does Philadelphia vote the way that Milwaukee votes? Right? We saw that difference in Milwaukee a short time ago. Is Philadelphia going to vote differently than Wayne County and Detroit? We're waiting to get that in as well. These are the collar counties. They're heavily blue. I would expect them to change somewhat, but we'll see as we go through the night. Just to check the bellwether here. This is Northampton. That's about as close as you get, guys. Difference of 300 votes, 303. Biden barely won it by 1,200 just 4 years ago. So that's where we are at the moment.
What about Pittsburgh?
Back on over to you, Allegheny County. Let's see where we are. A lot of the vote came in from Pittsburgh early on.
71, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you're 71 coming. That's right. And she's at 61%. Both you guys watched it, right? How many rallies did Trump have there? How many times did Kamala Harris go to the west side of Pennsylvania? This is a place I want to check out. I haven't done it yet. Let's find out together. This is Butler County. All right, where were you on July 13th? Here we go. You got 94% coming in, just shy of 66%. So how did Trump do in a rural county like Butler 4 years ago, before the assassination attempt, right, this past year? It was almost around the same number, okay? Up 36,000 to finish it 4 years ago. Right now, he's up 34,000 in Butler, PA.
Let me bring our prime folks in. Laura, what are you looking at?
Well, I just think it's interesting to look at these states that we kind of had looked past in our analysis. We're always focused on the blue wall states, obviously so important, but signs that Trump might be outperforming in ways that we hadn't expected. Bubbling up in places like New Mexico, where it's only 23% of the vote in, mind you, tons of votes outstanding, but he looks like he's outperforming there. He's up now 6 points with that small turnout. Again, the New York Times gives him a 79% chance of winning this election at this point, with leaning North Carolina, leaning Republican in Georgia. If those trends continue, it's all those 3 states where it's neck and neck. Right now, it's neck and neck in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. So I hope they can model themselves in the future on what Florida has done so brilliantly with Ron DeSantis. 96% of the vote in, and it's handled beautifully with absentee, mail-in vote. They just seem to do it in Florida. Why can't we do it in these other states?
Yeah, it's a great question. Most of us grew up with, you voted in the morning.
Same day.
Parents voted in the morning, and then you went home and got the answer that night. We've gone from 96 million voters when Fox News started to 160 probably million tonight, somewhere in that neighborhood.
And by the way, all of them watched Brett's interview with Kamala. I don't think
absolutely
nobody missed that.
So how much has voting changed, I guess, is what I'm getting at here, Sean, because we have this enormous early vote of 83 million.
It's so interesting you asked that question, because everything's kind of flipped. Republicans went in today with a lead that had never happened before. And it put the Democrats in a position mathematically where they had to accomplish something they'd never accomplished before, and that is to get same-day voters at numbers that they've never gotten before. And this is where we now find it. If I am correct in my belief, and my sources are right, and North Carolina, I'm almost 100% certain will be Donald Trump's. And Georgia, I believe, Harold and I have been going back and forth on this, will go to Donald Trump. Now, Arizona has been trending very strong towards Donald Trump. I don't know how long it'll take them to count the votes out there. That is frustrating, to Laura's point.
Well, to that point, Maricopa said because of the length of the ballot that they were going to, it may take days.
The referendums.
Okay. There were 2 pages in Florida, and they called it within an hour and a half. So, was it even an hour and a half?
Yeah, I'm just saying what they said.
So, all right, if we want to play out a few scenarios, if that turns out to be right, or Harold's going to wear Sean Hannity's wrong T-shirt, if I'm right and North Carolina and Georgia go to Donald Trump, and I am confident based on the information, Dave McCormick's numbers guy just wrote me. Dave McCormick running for Senate in Pennsylvania.
Against Bob Casey, the
Against
incumbent.
Bob Casey, the incumbent, who's been running ads tying himself to Donald Trump in Pennsylvania, which I think is very telling. He's confident Donald Trump is going to win Pennsylvania tonight. And what the Trump team has been telling me, where they were up by 1.1 million, we went over these numbers earlier. Back 4 years ago, they were only up 400,000 going into today's voting, day of voting. In Wisconsin, you have a similar situation. A 40% difference, a 40% shortfall. So I'm looking at the big board and I'm watching the ever-brilliant Bill Hemmer, and they needed numbers in Milwaukee that every source I know in Wisconsin is telling me they did not get today. And we're now at a situation where for Kamala Harris to have any opportunity to win, she's going to have to sweep that blue wall, those blue wall states. I don't see it. Do you see it?
I don't see it either. And if you look at Philadelphia, for instance, everybody was bragging this morning about how well turnout was in Philly. But if you look at Philly, South Philly is Italian. That's Pats, Chinos. They love Trump down there. Big Eagles territory, big Flyers. And then you go to the Northeast, that's Irish Catholic. Maybe Sean Hannity knows a few people up there. So they came out big for Donald Trump, and that might have been an explanation for those numbers to pop. But if you look at Pennsylvania broadly, they banked so much of the early vote, which they'd never done before. They don't think Kamala has enough right now in Philly and Pittsburgh to just overcome Trump's red county substantive lead.
Let me just put the caveat in there. Britt, we sat on an election desk in 2016, and there was a betting odds that you were quoting that had Hillary Clinton winning 90% chance that she was going to win.
That's where the evening began.
And then it started going down, and we started doing the what-if scenario, and her pathway started to narrow. It is flipped, to Sean's point, that the early vote gave Republicans an early boost, and the question is what the day of vote's going to show.
Well,
is her path narrowing as we get more into the night?
I think she started out with a narrower path. You know, we could figure out more ways that Trump could win. She had a narrower path. And the betting odds, by the way, are now up to 83% for Trump. And started at 58%, and it's climbed all through the evening to 69.
I think you should have a green eyeshot.
Anyway, and there are other models are now predicting him well in excess.
Stock market futures are also trading higher as well.
I do think, just to go back to this Milwaukee point that we were talking about during the break, I mean, they are rerunning 30,000 absentee votes in Milwaukee tonight because they couldn't, there was a problem with the processing. 31,000 absentee ballots after the election observer brought to the officials' attention that doors covering on and off switches on the devices, I guess, some of them weren't tallying and they were worried about it. So just for integrity purposes, they're rerunning all those ballots. So we might not hear the full and final counting from Milwaukee until tomorrow.
AP Votecast has Trump winning 23% of black men.